Imagine waking up in a place you don't recognize, surrounded by complete silence. No phone, no exit, just a single door creaking open by itself. What would you do? Story 1. The Frozen Secret. It started with a night out. A young woman, full of life, went drinking with friends and never made it home. Her last known movements were captured on security footage. She entered a man's apartment and left a short while later. The man insisted she was alive when she left. He looked into the camera and swore, "I had nothing to do with it." Another man was interviewed. He claimed to have seen her get into a stranger's car at a gas station. He wept, saying, "If only I had known, I would have stopped her." But it was all a lie. Days passed and nothing made sense. Police reviewed security footage from the second man's workplace, and that's when they noticed something disturbing. He was seen carrying a large cooler and placing it inside an industrial freezer. The footage wasn't clear enough to see what was inside, but the mere act raised suspicion. When questioned, his boss mentioned that the coolers were normally used for storing granola bars. But no one could explain why this one had been placed in the freezer. A deeper investigation uncovered the horrifying truth. Inside that cooler was the young woman's body. Before police could arrest him, the suspect burned almost all the evidence and bleached the inside of his van. It was a near-perfect cover-up, and for a while, it seemed he might get away with it. Then they found him. And when detectives asked why he had done it, he simply smiled and said, "Because I could." The most disturbing part? He wasn't suspected of anything before this. How many other people have disappeared under similar circumstances, their secrets locked away in places we'd never think to check? Story 2. A Nightmare in Disguise. In 2016, YouTuber Brittany Louise Taylor uploaded a heartfelt video titled "I'm Engaged and Pregnant." She gushed about her new fiancé, a man she met on Tinder. She was glowing, thrilled about their baby and excited for the future. Thousands of fans celebrated with her. But behind the scenes, she was living in a real-life horror movie. Her fiancé was not the man she thought he was. He wasn't in love with her. He had no interest in marriage. His real plan was far more sinister. He wanted to use her pregnancy to sell their child. At first, the warning signs were subtle. He took control of her schedule, isolated her from friends, and started handling all their finances. Any resistance was met with intimidation. She told herself it was just stress, that he was simply overprotective. But then the threats became explicit. "You don't realize how much danger you're in," he whispered one night, his tone eerily calm. One evening while he was in the shower, she checked his phone. What she found made her blood run cold. There were messages detailing plans to smuggle their unborn child out of the country. She wasn't even meant to be part of the deal, she was expendable. With every ounce of courage she had, Brittany planned her escape. She obtained a restraining order and shared her harrowing story with the world. But the most terrifying part? Her ex-fiancé never went to prison. He moved on, found another influencer, and impregnated her. That woman has since vanished from social media. How many others have fallen into traps like these, completely unaware until it's too late? Story 3. The Monster in Disguise. In 2004, the town of Mornington, Australia, was captivated by a heartbreaking plea. John Sharp, a devastated husband and father, appeared on television, begging for his missing wife and daughter to come home. His eyes filled with tears. His voice cracked with grief. The public felt his pain and rallied behind him. But behind the cameras, behind the tears, he was their killer. The reality was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. John Sharp had murdered his wife with a bow and arrow. Not in a moment of rage, not in self-defense, but in a calculated act. He then turned to his 2-year-old daughter. His first shot didn't kill her. So he pulled the arrow out and shot her again. He buried them. But weeks later he returned, dug them up, and disposed of them in a landfill to further cover his tracks. Meanwhile, he continued his facade, even sending flowers to his wife's mother, pretending everything was normal. For weeks he maintained the lie. It wasn't until police confronted him with overwhelming evidence that he finally cracked. His confession was chilling, detached, emotionless, as if he were discussing someone else's crime. Even in prison he remains isolated. Other inmates fear him, not for his crimes but for how effortlessly he deceived the world. How many other murderers walk among us, hiding behind crocodile tears and fabricated grief? Story 4. A Movie with a Haunting Past. The 2007 film Waitress is a heartwarming story about a woman escaping an abusive marriage and finding happiness. But the real story behind it is one of heartbreak. Adrienne Shelley, the film's writer, director, and co-star, had everything to look forward to. She had just finished filming when tragedy struck. One evening she was found dead in her apartment, hanging from a shower rod. The case was ruled a suicide. But something didn't add up. Her husband was adamant, Adrienne had no reason to take her own life. Detectives decided to take a closer look. And then the horrifying truth unraveled. Adrienne hadn't killed herself. She had been murdered by a construction worker who had been illegally working in her building. In a fit of rage, he strangled her, then staged the scene to look like suicide. He thought he had gotten away with it. But tiny inconsistencies in the crime scene led detectives straight to him. He was arrested, and Adrienne's family was left with a bitter truth. Her story, meant to bring joy to audiences, had ended in tragedy. How many other suicides are really something far more sinister? Story 5. The Dance of a Killer. It was June 2012. Inside an AMC theater in Connecticut, a camera recorded a young man playing Dance Dance Revolution. He was skilled, almost hypnotic to watch. The person filming chuckled, half impressed, half mocking his moves. 6 months later, that same young man committed one of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history. His name was Adam Lanza. On December 14, 2012, he murdered his mother, then drove to Sandy Hook Elementary, where he slaughtered 20 children and 6 adults before taking his own life. Watching that old footage now is unsettling. He looked like any other 20-year-old lost in a game. But behind those blank eyes, darkness lurked. How many times have we unknowingly crossed paths with people hiding monstrous secrets? If any of these stories sent chills down your spine, let me know in the comments. Have you ever experienced something that just can't be explained? Drop your story below. Story 5. The dark secret behind Life of Pi. During the filming of Life of Pi, the majestic Bengal tiger named King, who portrayed Richard Parker, nearly met a tragic fate on set. The very organization responsible for ensuring the safety of animals, the American Humane Association (AHA), seemingly turned a blind eye to the horrifying incident. In a leaked email, AHA official Gina Johnson revealed the chilling truth. Last week, we almost killed King in the water tank. This one take went really bad. He got lost trying to swim to the side and damn near drowned. I think this goes without saying, but don't mention it to anyone, especially the office. I have downplayed the F** out of it. The fact that this cover-up came from an organization meant to protect animals makes it all the more disturbing. And Life of Pi wasn't the only case. The AHA was also accused of negligence in the Hobbit trilogy, where 27 animals reportedly perished due to hazardous living conditions on set. If the organization meant to ensure no animals were harmed is failing at its duty, how many other productions are hiding dark secrets? Do you think Hollywood should be held more accountable for on-set animal safety? Story 6. The tragic reality behind the Star Wars kid. We've all seen the infamous Star Wars kid video, the innocent, goofy clip of a young boy wielding a makeshift lightsaber. But what started as a playful moment turned into a nightmare. Ghislaine Raza recorded the footage in private, but cruel classmates discovered it and leaked it online. The video went viral in the early 2000s, becoming one of the internet's first memes. But behind the laughter was a heartbreaking reality. Raza became the target of relentless cyberbullying. In a 2013 interview, he revealed, "What I saw was mean. It was violent. People were telling me to commit suicide. The bullying was so severe that he had to leave school and pursue private tutoring. He lost friends. His life derailed." Years later, Raza reclaimed his identity, completing his education and becoming a law graduate. Today he raises awareness about the devastating effects of cyberbullying, using his painful past as a lesson for others. It's easy to laugh at a viral meme, but behind every video, there's a real person suffering the consequences. Do you think internet culture has become more or less cruel over time? Story 7. The secret in the footage. In 2006, a man and his girlfriend often recorded their intimate moments on a camcorder. Years later, long after their breakup, he had to review those tapes for legal reasons, and what he discovered shattered him. During one recording, as he adjusted the camera, his girlfriend raised her right hand in a clenched fist. She wasn't looking at him. She was staring at something, or someone, in the hallway. He initially dismissed it as a weird gesture, but after combing through 10 months of footage, he found 9 separate instances where his girlfriend had secretly invited someone into their home to watch. He had never known. He had never even suspected. What started as a simple trip down memory lane turned into a horror story. The situation escalated, involving police, the Texas Rangers, and even the FBI. What would you do if you discovered something horrifying hidden in old footage of yourself? Story 8. The death of Owen Hart. Wrestling fans remember May 23, 1999, as the night Owen Hart tragically fell to his death during a live WWF pay-per-view event. But what many don't realize is how preventable his death was. Performing as his comedic Blue Blazer persona, Hart was supposed to descend from the rafters via harness. But due to cost-cutting and subpar equipment, the mechanism failed. He plummeted 78 feet into the ring. He died instantly. The most disturbing part? The WWF chose to continue the event. Ringside announcer Jim Ross had to inform millions of viewers, live on air, that Owen Hart had just died. Years later, documentaries exposed the horrifying negligence that led to the accident. Some even question whether the event's name, Over the Edge, was merely an unfortunate coincidence or something far more sinister. Should dangerous stunts be banned from professional wrestling? Story 9. The woman on TV in her dark secret. A heartwarming local news segment featured an elderly woman smiling as teens volunteered to do yard work for senior citizens in the scorching summer heat. The story painted her as a sweet, helpless old lady. But the truth was much darker. One of her children, now an adult, watched the broadcast in horror. The woman wasn't a kind, gentle grandmother. She was an abusive monster. As a child, the woman had locked her outside for hours, forcing her to do yard work without food, water, or shelter. Even during thunderstorms, even with tornado warnings, she had been left outside to suffer. For years she had hidden the abuse. But now she was on television playing the role of a kind soul. How many people we see in feel-good stories are hiding horrifying pasts? Story 10. The song that became a prophetic farewell. The song Fiction by Avenged Sevenfold is haunting. Not just because of its lyrics but because of the story behind it. It was originally titled Death and was written by the band's drummer, Jimmy "The Rev" Sullivan. He submitted the song just days before his accidental overdose. The eeriest part? The song features vocals that the Rev recorded himself before he died. The lyrics, which he wrote without knowing his fate, feel hauntingly prophetic. Now I think I understand how this world can overcome a man. After his death, the band changed the song's name to Fiction, one of his nicknames, and left his vocals in as a tribute. Listening to it feels like hearing a man unknowingly write his own farewell letter. Do you believe in eerie coincidences, or do some things feel like fate?